When we begin the journey of letting go, we start with a simple yet profound realization: you cannot release what you do not recognize. So take a slow breath and allow yourself to notice what you're carrying. Not with judgment, not with pressure, but with gentle awareness. There are thoughts woven into the fabric of your mind, some so familiar that you barely notice them anymore. They whisper stories about who you should be, what should have happened, what you wish you could change. There are emotions resting in the body, waiting patiently for acknowledgement. Tension in the chest, tightness in the stomach, subtle heaviness behind the eyes. And then there are expectations, created long ago, that place weight on your shoulders even now. For a moment, simply observe. Feel the mind trying to solve, control, rewrite, or resist. Feel how each thought is attached to a deeper need, perhaps the need for certainty, validation, or safety. When you bring awareness to these patterns, they begin to loosen, even without effort. Awareness itself is liberation. You don't need to fix anything in this moment. You only need to see clearly. Notice how the act of observing softens the internal noise. Notice how being present creates a gentle distance between you and the storylines that once felt heavy. As you continue to breathe, invite a sense of curiosity toward the things you cling to. Ask yourself quietly, what am I holding on to right now? What thought, memory, or expectation has wrapped itself around my heart? Let the answers rise naturally without forcing. Sometimes the mind will reveal something obvious, a moment from the past, a disappointment, a fear of the future. Sometimes it will reveal subtle attachments, like the desire to be understood, the hope for an apology, or the wish for life to look different than it does. Whatever arises, allow it. Let it exist without pushing it away. This is the beginning of release. Not the act of letting go, but the willingness to see clearly. When you recognize what you're holding, its power over you begins to dissolve. The mind clings to what is unexamined, and the heart carries what has not been acknowledged. But the moment you bring something into the light of awareness, it loses its tight grip and begins to soften. Notice how the body responds as you observe these attachments. Maybe the shoulders relax a little, or the breath deepens. Maybe the chest expands in small, subtle ways. Each physical shift is a sign that you are beginning to create space between yourself and the stories that once felt so close, space between your true essence and the noise of accumulated thoughts. This space is where freedom begins. Allow yourself to go a little deeper. Ask gently, why have I been holding on to this? Not as a way of self-criticism, but as an act of understanding. You may find that what you're holding was once a form of protection, a belief that kept you safe, a memory that shaped you, an expectation that gave you direction. You may discover that your attachments were never mistakes. They were simply steps along your path. When you see this with compassion, you stop resisting yourself. You stop fighting the parts of you that were only trying to help. And in this acceptance, you create the internal conditions for release. Let your awareness spread wider. Notice the moments where the mind tries to go back to old patterns, trying to control, trying to force, trying to rewrite the past. Observe them with the same calm presence. You are not these impulses. You are the awareness watching them. When you witness your inner world with openness, without judgment, you naturally rise above the turbulence. You become the sky, not the storm. And now breathe into whatever you've discovered. Imagine your breath creating softness around it, as if you're gently loosening a knot. You don't need to untangle it fully. You don't need to let go right now. All you need is to recognize what has been there, silently shaping your inner landscape. Recognition is the first act of liberation. The more clearly you see, the less tightly you hold. The less tightly you hold, the more naturally life flows. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. As you settle into this moment, allow your breath to become your guide. Not something you control or manipulate, but something you listen to, something you follow gently back into yourself. The breath is always here, waiting to help you soften the tightness you've been carrying. So many of the emotions we hold on to live in the body long before we consciously acknowledge them. Worry gathers in the chest, unspoken sadness hides behind the ribs, tension rests heavily in the stomach. The body remembers everything, even the things the mind tries to forget. And that is why the breath becomes such a powerful ally. It knows how to move through the places we've ignored, the spaces we've hardened, the corners we've closed off. With each inhale, imagine you're creating a little more space within yourself, not forcing the breath deeper than it naturally flows, but inviting it in with tenderness. This simple act has a quiet intelligence to it. When you breathe into a tight or heavy place, you're not trying to fix it. You're simply letting it be seen. The breath brings light where the mind has cast shadows. It brings warmth to places that have grown cold with neglect. And as you breathe out, allow the exhale to soften the edges of whatever you're holding. Let it release the pressure, even if only a little. The breath doesn't demand sudden transformation. It simply invites gentle surrender. Notice how the inhale expands you from the inside. Notice how the exhale relaxes you into yourself. This rhythm is more than a physical process. It is a conversation between your inner world and the life that moves through you. When the mind feels overwhelmed, when the heart feels constricted, the breath reminds you that you are not stuck. You are not closed. You are not frozen in the shape of your fears. You are fluid. You are spacious. You are capable of softening. If you sense tightness anywhere, a knot in the stomach, a heaviness in the chest, a stiffness in the neck, breathe there. Imagine the breath entering that space as if your awareness is traveling with it. Let the breath surround the tension gently, the way warm water softens a stone. You don't need to analyze the tightness or demand that it disappears. The body opens on its own when it feels safe, when it feels seen. And your gentle, patient breathing is what creates that sense of safety. In this moment, the breath becomes a bridge. It connects the surface of your awareness to the deeper layers of yourself. The layers where old emotions, old beliefs, and old memories have been stored. You may find that as you breathe, certain feelings rise or subtle sensations awaken. This is not a sign of disturbance, it is a sign of release. The breath loosens what has been stuck. It stirs what has been silent, and all you need to do is allow it. Breathe in and feel yourself expanding beyond the limits of old patterns. Breathe out and feel yourself returning to a state of ease. With each breath, you're teaching your body that it is safe to relax, safe to let go, safe to soften. And as the body softens, the mind follows. The grip of old thoughts begins to weaken. The urgency of old fears begins to fade. The pressure of expectation begins to lift. You begin to feel a subtle lightness that comes not from forcing, but from allowing. The breath shows you that release is not an act of strength, but an act of surrender. You don't need to fight the tightness. You simply need to breathe with it. You don't need to overcome your emotions. You simply need to offer them space. And the more you breathe into the places that feel heavy or resistant, the more they open. Slowly, effortlessly. Feel yourself becoming more spacious with every inhale. Feel yourself becoming more grounded with every exhale. This is how you begin to let go from the inside out. Not through pressure, not through willpower, but through the gentle, persistent invitation of the breath. It guides you back to the truth that peace is not something you chase, it is something you uncover. Softness is strength. There comes a moment in every inner journey when you realize that the tension you feel does not come from life itself, but from the need to manage, to predict, to control what life will bring. The mind believes that holding tightly will protect you, but in truth, the tighter you hold, the more you suffer. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about releasing the illusion that you must force outcomes for life to unfold correctly. So take a slow breath and allow yourself to feel what it's like to loosen that internal grip just a little. Notice the part of you that always tries to plan the next step. Notice the part that fears uncertainty, that wants guarantees, that wants the world to move according to your timeline. These parts are not wrong, They are simply conditioned. They were built from past experiences, shaped by fears, shaped by desires, shaped by moments where uncertainty felt dangerous. But now, in this moment, you have the opportunity to choose a different way, the way of trust, the way of allowing, the way of flow. Imagine for a moment what life could feel like if you are no longer resisting it. Imagine what it would be like to wake up each morning without carrying the weight of expectation, of outcomes that haven't arrived yet, of conversations that haven't happened, of situations that haven't unfolded. Imagine the freedom of simply being here, moving with life instead of against it. This freedom is not distant. It begins the moment you stop forcing and start trusting. Trust is not passive. It is not the absence of intention. It is the understanding that intention guides your direction, but it is life that carries you forward. When you trust the flow, you stop trying to push the river. You stop trying to rearrange the world so it feels safer. You begin to recognize that life has its own timing, its own rhythm, its own intelligence. And that intelligence is far greater than the small, anxious stories of the mind. Feel how your breath supports this idea. When you inhale, there is a natural expansion. When you exhale, there is a natural release. You don't control these shifts, you simply allow them. This is the same principle that guides all of existence. You are part of a flow far larger than your personal will. And when you release control even briefly, you step into harmony with that flow. Ask yourself quietly, what am I trying to control right now? Let the answer rise without resistance. It may be a situation, a person, an outcome, a fear. Notice how the mind tightens when it feels uncertain. Notice how the heart constricts when it tries to hold on. And now, imagine what it would feel like to loosen that grip, just enough to breathe freely again. Life is not asking you to abandon your dreams or your direction. It is asking you to release the struggle. You can still move forward with clarity, still take steps rooted in intention and purpose. But you no longer have to wrestle with what is beyond your reach. You no longer have to demand that life look a certain way before you can feel peace. Letting go of control is an act of alignment. When you surrender, you align yourself with the deeper currents of your own existence. You stop fighting the natural unfolding of your path. You begin to trust that what is meant for you will arrive in its own time. You begin to trust that what is not meant for you will quietly fall away. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself, not the anxious self that fears uncertainty, but the deeper self that knows you are held by something greater than your thoughts. Feel the ease that begins to rise as you imagine living without constant resistance. Feel the spaciousness that opens within you when you stop trying to mold life into something it is not yet ready to become. This is the soft, quiet liberation that comes from surrendering the need to control. It is the moment you step out of the narrow boundaries of fear and into the wide, open expanse of possibility. The more you trust, the more life surprises you with its support. The more you release, the more you discover what was waiting for you all along. Surrender is not an ending. It is a beginning of living with ease, with clarity, with freedom, and with every breath you move closer to that freedom. Let life unfold. When you finally begin to release what no longer serves you, the old expectations, the tight stories, the need to control, you create space inside yourself that has been waiting to be uncovered. This space is not empty. It is filled with a quiet presence that has always been there, beneath all the layers of fear, tension, and attachment. Returning to your true self is not a journey outward, it is a gentle movement inward, toward the calm center of your being. And this return happens naturally, effortlessly, the moment you stop gripping the things that pull you away from yourself. Take a slow breath and notice what happens inside you when you soften your hold on the thoughts and emotions you once believed defined you. Notice the way your awareness expands, even slightly. Notice how the mind begins to quiet, how the heart begins to open, how the body begins to relax. These shifts are not accidental. They are signs that you are coming home to your natural state. A state of grounded presence, of clarity, of deep inner peace. You may feel as though you are rediscovering something familiar, something you once knew but forgot along the way. And that is true. Your true self is not new, it is simply uncovered. Beneath all your worries, beneath your stories, beneath the roles you play and the masks you wear, there is a presence that is untouched by fear, unchanged by circumstance, unwavering in its stillness. This presence has been with you since the beginning. It has witnessed every experience, every emotion, every moment of your life with unwavering calm. And when you let go, you begin to feel it again. Notice how, as you breathe, you begin to sense more space around your thoughts. You may still have the same memories, the same responsibilities, the same situations, but they no longer feel as heavy. They no longer define you. You can observe them without becoming entangled in them. This is the gift of returning to your true self. The ability to witness your life without losing yourself in it. Feel the difference between the self that clings and the self that observes. One is reactive, tense, constantly searching for certainty. The other is spacious, patient, grounded in the present moment. When you come back to this inner presence, you realize that nothing outside of you can disturb your peace unless you give it permission. You realize that you can face life with openness because you are no longer identified with the noise within and around you. There is a profound liberation in this realization. You begin to understand that you are not the thoughts that rise and fall in your mind. You are not the emotions that move through your body like passing weather. You are not the beliefs that were handed to you by the world. You are the awareness beneath all of it, the silent witness that remains steady regardless of what comes or goes. As you breathe into this awareness, you may begin to feel a quiet joy rising from within. Not the joy that depends on outcomes or achievements, but the joy of simply being. The joy that comes from remembering who you truly are, an awareness that is whole, complete, and deeply at peace. You may feel lighter, as though something inside you has relaxed its grip. You may feel more present, more connected to yourself, more available to life. This inner presence is not distant. It is not something you need to earn. It is here now, waiting for your attention. Every time you release a fear, you move closer to it. Every time you breathe into a tightness, you uncover it. Every time you stop trying to control life and allow it to unfold, you align with it more deeply. And the more you align with this presence, the more life begins to feel harmonious, even when challenges arise. Returning to your true self does not mean escaping the world. It means living in the world with a deeper foundation. It means moving from a place of clarity instead of confusion, compassion instead of fear, openness instead of resistance. It means responding instead of reacting, allowing instead of grasping, trusting instead of forcing. It means remembering that peace is not something you find, it is something you return to. The moment you reconnect with this inner presence, you realize that you have always been whole,